Joining me now, a returning guest. My smile goes ear to ear every time I get on with it, because we always have fun. We always have a lot of laughs. We always get to, we've good hoops conversations. You could see her on such places as ESPN and MSG Network, covering the Knicks and the NBA and just talking sports and doing a fantastic job of it. Monica McNutt, how are you?
Macri, it's good to be back, friend. What's up, Andrew, in the background over there? Hey, friend.
Andrew feels so honored. I not many people come on and they give Andrew the hello, and you did, and now he's blushing. It's great.
Just made my day. Thank you, Monica.
Well, to be fair, the last episode of the pod that I was fortunate enough to listen to as I was working out, I think, was led by one Andrew Claudio. So he's the last voice I remember on this pod.
As it should. No, I'm playing.
he does all the heavy lifting. He's the real hero of the pod. Needless to say. We'll talk about the Knicks in a second, but I always like to start with you and because I just love watching your journey from afar. How have things been? I mean, it's like I turn on the TV, I scroll Twitter or whatever. It's like I see you doing something, talking about some team, player, whatever, all these different formats. I mean, you're all over the place.
It's good though. It's good. I'm not gonna lie. I had like a weekend of like, what's about to happen as I watched my schedule fill up after a very beautiful summer. But now that we're starting to get into the rhythm, it's seasonal. We're back in season. And so I think what's cool for me now is showing up places and players and coaches are like, yo, what's up? You know what I mean? Like, kind of continue to earn that respect, because above anything, that matters to me. People that love the game, and not that we have to agree, but I respect where you came from, people that I respect, and of course, being able to inspire young folks behind me. So we're good. I'm enjoying the ride.
I did want to ask you, because it's something that I personally just like struggle with, because like I feel like when you cover a team or you focus on one team, in order to do that to the best of your abilities, like you have to pay attention to the other 29 teams in the league at large. You, in your role and all your many different hats that you wear, it's a one step further, because you're literally covering all of the teams, for like ESPN. But at the same time, like the Knicks are still, I would think, your main focus. How do you find it difficult to achieve that balance at times? Because again, I know your schedule is insane.
Oh, for sure. I think I hosted a podcast for Junior NBA. Last year was my second year with them. And we had, I can't think of her name at the moment, but we had the head coach of Florida women's basketball. Okay. And she basically had this concept. I don't know, I've heard it before, but I don't know why it felt so earth shattering coming from her. And it was this idea that hard is neutral, right? Like hard is neutral, fit is neutral. So hell yeah, it's tricky to keep up with all these teams, right? Like, and you throw in women's college basketball in the mix, like absolutely it's difficult. But like, it was difficult when I so desperately wanted this job and felt like I couldn't get there, Yeah. So yeah, but I think that's a neutral for me. So yeah, I'm living, there. I will say, like Wednesday, I was at Nets Bucks in Milwaukee, and both the Nets sideline reporter and Bucks sideline reporter are good friends. And so we got a chance to powwow. And I'm looking at them like, I'm so jealous of y'all, because I feel like you get the chance to be embedded and get these really good stories. And me popping in and out on the national scene is kind of hit or miss. But and then at the same time, they're like, well, you get to get away from these fools, and we stuck with them. So count your blessings too. So it's all.
I was about to say, like, isn't the grass always green? Like, I know for me, when the Knicks are bad, which, spoiler alert, happens sometimes. There are times when I'm writing a newsletter or I'm doing a pod, and I'm like, man, it would be cool to talk about like any number of other teams right now. But at the same time, I know I'm lucky, because like if I have expertise in this one, or whatever counts as expertise in this one team, it's like I could it's passable. I don't think there's a right answer, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. I agree with you. I think you deal with what's on your plate, the cards that are in front of you, you know what I'm saying? And I think for all of us that get to make a living off of a passion, first of all, that's a privilege in and of itself. Like, let's just start there.
Agreed. Very, very well said. So let's talk about the Knicks.
Let's do it.
As we sit here Thursday, 4:17 p.m., they are They are 3-1 after 4 games. I did just look it up before and I tweeted it out that the defensive ratings of the 4 teams that they have played are all in the bottom 13 of the NBA. The next 2 teams that they're playing, including one that you just witnessed up close and personal the other night, are ranked number 1 and number 2 in Milwaukee and Cleveland. With the caveat that maybe the schedule has not been that difficult, do you think it's okay at this point to feel, I mean, you alluded to it already, to feel pretty good, dare I say, excited about what this team is and where it could go?
It's a long season, Macri, and I don't have to tell you that. Absolutely, it's okay. And you know this, I love Knicks fans. I think that they are intelligent, passionate. Like, I just respect y'all have ridden through it all. But enjoy it while it's up, baby. Because you know what I'm saying? Like, the rain might come for sure, but don't pull out the umbrellas yet. It's not raining. I think you made a great point. And I was very super rational coming into the season. But this opening run feels really good. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, slow your roll a little bit. Because I think in a vacuum, yes, the Knicks have looked great. Then we think about the moves that were made across the rest of the East. And it's like, this is still a handful of games and we got a long season at play. But I think there's a lot of promise that we've seen in these first few games. And that's a good thing. You know,
you just brought it up and I wasn't going to ask about this, but like, might as well. Like the moves across the East, I wonder how challenging it's going to be both for the Knicks to maintain perspective this season and for like the fans to maintain perspective this season, because it's very clear that the team is better, but would they have gotten a win last night if it wasn't against the Hornets? Would they have gotten a win 2 nights before that if it wasn't against the Magic? And like, I know other people have said this, but they could be better. They might be significantly better. And the record might not reflect that. I don't know. Are you okay with that? Or how do you see that kind of dynamic playing out?
I am okay with that because I think, again, speaking to the astuteness of these fans, in terms of growth, it's okay to look at it in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
Because I do think that this team is better. Did they get so much better that I'm confident that they're going to be 10-9-8? I haven't seen enough of Cleveland yet. Like, I don't know what's going on in Chicago and Charlotte. Like, that was a Charlotte team that was a little bit depleted that took overtime to take care of business. You know what I mean? Like,
a little bit.
Right. A little bit, right? So, yes, I think that's smart to make that observation. The team got better, period, point blank, because you got a point guard, a legit point guard, right?
Oh, we're going to talk about him soon.
But the East is also crazy. Like, somebody asked me for predictions. You just see me with, like, papers and pencils, like, well, who do I buy? Like, how's this going to shake out? The East is crazy.
I don't know. Even like Indiana, like I've turned them on a few times. Like, yeah, they're talent depleted and they're playing some young guys, but like Tyrese Halliburton's out there putting up whatever he is, 24 and 10 with like a 57 effective field goal percentage. And like that dude's out there, and they have some other guys. I know Miles Turner's only played a game, and they're like undeniably probably the worst team in the conference. And then it just gets harder from there. Back to Jalen Brunson, you mentioned him already. There's been obviously this conversation about the Knicks finally have a point guard, and that's a big deal. And because we haven't had one in forever and the whole thing, how much in your eyes as someone who has played the sport is it they have a point guard or they have a guy who can get you a bucket reliably when you need a bucket? And is there, is it a little bit of both? Like, because to me, when he's come up biggest this season, like, yes, it's the leadership and the demeanor and like making the right play and all the little things he does. But it's also like, man, I don't know where else we're getting offense for him right now. Oh, wait, we have him. So it's like, to me, it's a little bit of both.
I agree with you that it's both. If I had to throw percentages, I'd probably go 40. No, I think it's less than that. Probably like 30 that maybe split the difference. 35 that we have a point guard. And then I'm bad at math. The rest of those numbers are it being him.
I like it.
And his, like, because I don't know that Jalen gets enough praise for his demeanor, for his big shot ability, like for his mindset toward leadership. Like we mentioned the national stuff for me. I'm having a conversation with folks all over the place, mainly across town, about this idea of leadership. And like, whatever you subscribe to, as far as leadership goes, Jalen Brunson is what you want.
Yes.
Right? And it is not brashy or overstated. It's, this is what we're going to do. Now watch me. Like, period. And I think that is so unheralded, I guess, in him. Because, like you said, everybody's like, oh, we just got a point guard. Well, it can't quite just be any point guard. Like, this young man is uniquely built for New York.
How many players around the league who have his type of, I'm going to be really specific, shot-making ability have, I don't want to call it humility. That's not the right word, but like, you phrased it better than I can. He's like low-key. I brought it up on the pod after last night's game. Rebecca asked him, you had this amazing game, this and that. First words out of his mouth, I have great teammates.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that's not a common quality among the best players in the league.
I will say Malcolm Brogdon is like that. And I think he's really good as a point guard. Kyle Lowry is like that, although he gives you a little more personality. Like Jalen almost feels like regimented. Giannis is crazy on the team and humility kick. It's almost like, dude, are you serious? Yeah. Like, are you serious right now?
He's one of one, though.
Yeah. But when it comes to like point guards, Malcolm, Kyle are the first guys that come to mind. Darius Garland has some of that.
Okay.
Guys that are just very low key, matter of fact, at that point guard position.
Do you think that makes for better leadership? Easier leadership?
Okay, so before I answer this, I'll give you this story. I was talking to Steph Curry during a preseason game, right? Okay. And there's big names on that Nets squad, but then you got these guys that are like legit and are going to be important for what the Nets are doing. But he pointed out to me how many superstars he's played alongside. Right? Like Dame, Luka.
I was going to say Luka.
Now with this crew. And it just got me to thinking there's the skill of being likable and easy to work with is another thing, unheralded, right? And so I don't know that it makes you necessarily a better leader, but it certainly makes you more approachable from the front office down to the folks on the team. Drew Holiday is like that as well, I would say, in terms of the low-key guys that have point guard spot. And so, and then as these guys that we're talking about, you look and their numbers are undeniable too. So it's not like, I'm going to grab this dude because he's easy to get along with, but he's a bum. That's not what we're saying. Like, it's not what we're saying at all. And so I do think, particularly at that position, in a league where, I mean, who are your bombastic point guards? Dame, Luka, Ja? Like, other than that, Trey?
That's true. Yeah, Trey, I think he has some bombast. That's a... I mean, Luka.
I said Luka. Yeah.
Oh, you said Luka. Okay. Yeah.
I did say Luka, but I'm saying it's still very much a two guard league in my mind, right? Like there's still this thing with the.
He strikes me as so low maintenance, and to me that's like, I don't know. Maybe I've been just watching like Durant and LeBron for too many years. No offense against those wonderful human beings, but they do. I would not describe either of them as like low maintenance. And I feel like this generation, God knows you would know better than me. I think this generation of stars takes their cues from those guys about how they go about their business. And that's kind of why I was going towards like, it's a rarity what you're seeing from Jalen Brunson, but Jalen Brunson is not built like those guys. He's a massive chip on his shoulder because he was a second round pick.
Yeah, second round pick. I don't, and you know what is interesting, Macri, as I'm thinking about conversations with guys, because even in the conversation of leader and style, you even got to separate KD and LeBron.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so I don't know. I'm literally thinking of like sort of Jalen's class of guys that are who would be considered LeBron-esque personality wise. Like, I think more of them are trend closer to Jalen, at least front facing with the media.
Oh, maybe.
Than like, I don't know. Now we're on a whole nother like.
No, maybe no. You know what? You might be right. Maybe this younger, and the league has certainly trended. It's getting younger. The guys, the Hardens and the Chris Pauls and the Russes and are starting to kind of age out. Yeah, and they're like these like Ja. he seems to be like the guy that if you're going to look at right now is like, okay, who would you want leading your team? Maybe not, he might not be the best player for the next 5-10 years. Right. But I bet you there'll be a lot of guys that would vote for like, yeah, let me go play behind that dude. But I think he approaches everything with a certain amount of poise, but he's also got some shit to him. So
yeah. Oh, facts. But what I would say, and we'd probably need to talk. I know you were around. Like, I think, first of all, the whole thing in Memphis is really unique. But the way that Ja has his team's back is probably a lot more like Jalen behind the scenes. But he's happy to, like you said, to put his shit on when it's time to talk trash. Whereas you hear these stories about, I mean, it's the Michael Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, like DNA, right? But where these guys demand so much of you, they're maybe not as easy to get along with. I'm not saying that Jalen or Ja or any of these guys that we're talking about allow their teams to slouch behind the scenes. But I do think that as we enter literally and watch the changing of the guard in the league, there's a different style of leadership. It means something different to be a teammate to younger guys. And that's what I think we're seeing.
I as someone who like eats all the culture stuff up, I think about this stuff all the time. I love it. Speaking of culture, the culture was not great around the Knicks last season, or it didn't seem. I shouldn't say that. From the outside looking in, there were times where you thought maybe everything was not hunky dory, and much of the blame for that went on Julius Randle, or at least maybe he was the embodiment of the bad, the bad vibes around the team. He seems very happy. Seems his head's in a great place this year. How much are you taking from what we've seen from him? Both just his play, how he's going about his business. Where are you at with Julius this year?
Thank you, Jalen. So far.
It's that. Yeah, I love it. That's right. It's just thank you, Jalen. That's great.
Very simple. Listen, it's stressful for all of us to be doing stuff out of position. Now, granted, there was certainly some puzzling moments from Drew last year, and he's a great dude off the court, father, husband, the whole bit, philanthropist. But I think more than anything, when I saw him last year, he was out of position. He was stressed. He was repeating the same thing that wasn't working, and so slightly insane, right? Like. And that was, unfortunately, a little bit of a necessity because, as you pointed out, now you've got Jalen who can hit big time baskets when you need them. Last year we had question marks on who was hot or what the play was going to be. But in his mind, as at the time reigning most improved player, it was still his responsibility. But last year's season was not the season prior, both from his game and the way the teams were playing him. So I think we all agree. When he keeps it simple, he's at his best.
Yes.
And this year, he's been able to keep it simple. Straight to the basket, less than 4 dribbles. Like, you cannot challenge how strong he is when he's in the right places. We just got to get him to the right places consistently. Thank you, Jalen.
I know he didn't shoot it well last night, but it's Julius, and after the year he had last year, if he has one bad game, he's going to get critiqued, and there was some of that last night. But I have no problem defending him up and down because every one of those shots, I felt the process was good. I felt like he was attacking, like, again, no long mid-rangers, no commandeering the offense in a way that's not, really healthy. I love that. I'm assuming you think he's pretty happy about the fact that Jalen Brunson is here on this team.
Absolutely. I think everybody's happy. Like, I think even Derrick Rose is happy. Like, I think everybody's happy. How could you not be? If you're not, you probably need to be traded because, like, you're not pulling in the same direction as everybody else. I agree with you, though. And I think shots come and go, but process is important.
Yep.
And besides me wanting to pull out my little short hair over the turnovers last night.
Oh, God. They were particularly, it wasn't the number of them, the manner. Timing, the way, it was all bad. It was none of it was
like,
good.
Evan, are you going to catch the ball? No, you're not going to catch the ball, right? As we inbound. Okay, cool. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so I think, this is what was frustrating for me last year. And this is why, again, to your earlier question, go ahead and be happy and enjoy where we are last year. Because I felt like this time last year, I was like, uh-oh. Now I'm like, okay, like maybe, because you could already see last year where the process was kind of set up for these lulls that was just not sustainable.
Yes.
This year, to your point, I still need to figure out some things in that second unit. But the process to me is a little more smoother. You're back to a squad that's going to have an identity. I love the energy and the focus that's been put in transition because I keep saying it. I don't care what level of basketball you're playing. You got to find some easy baskets. And so I'm encouraged.
I want to see them maintain that transition urgency in transition throughout the season. They're 13th in effective field goal percentage right now, which is a little higher than I think is sustainable for them. So that's a little worrisome. But at the same time, like they're last at getting to the line in the league. I saw that before and I was like, wow, I didn't realize it was that. Yeah, so that'll go up. So I think, even with the stingier competition, I'm hopeful, that they could get around some of the, spacing concerns in the starting five. You mentioned the bench. Everybody loves the bench. That's the one point of divisiveness, even this season, as things are good. It's like Obi's not really getting a lot of time. And, what's going to happen when Quentin Grimes comes back is someone that, we don't want to go on the bench, going to go on the bench. Do you, again, having spent so much time around this team and around this league, do you think those issues, if they are issues, and I don't know that they are, maybe you could talk to that as well, are the type of thing that could negatively impacts all the good vibes that are going on right now? You want to call it like the disease of more, like guys wanting a bigger piece of the pie. How do you see that playing out?
I think for me, if you got a basketball team and you don't have a touch of the disease of more, like you don't have people trying to compete.
Okay.
Right. And so I think there's a healthy, where are my minutes? And then they are, like my coach used to say, well, you got to go take somebody's minutes, right? Like as much as Quentin has shown us, I need more of Cam from Memphis than Cam from Charlotte. But like if Cam is rolling, like Quentin, you got to go take those minutes. And that's fine. That's healthy to me. That's competition. The tricky part in this, and when we have the conversation as fans, is like fan favorites versus actual production. Which gets a little murky sometimes. But this early, because think back to last year, this early, I don't know that Tibbs was given the second unit this kind of rain.
I don't think he Quickly's certainly getting a lot of minutes, and Cam, finished the game last night after Evan fouled out, but still.
So I'm okay. I think you got to let it play out. I think you got to, and the reality of basketball is matchups will also continue to dictate, right? Like there may be a game that's better suited for Cam than Quentin, that's better suited for Evan than Quick. Like you would rather have tools that are sharp and ready to contribute than like not. So I don't have an issue with the depth of the bench. I don't have an issue with guys wanting to be on the floor. If you want to be on the floor, don't waste the time on the floor. And then if you want to be on the floor, go bust somebody's ass in practice. That's the way the game goes.
That's why I love talking to you. I'm going to ask you a couple of specific things, and then we'll get you out of here soonish. Because again, I know your schedule is crazy. Because people will be mad at me if I don't ask you these questions. So it's again in my self-interest to cover my rear end. I'm going to call it a logjam because I don't know what else to call it. Assuming at some point, hopefully, knock on wood, Quentin Grimes gets healthy. There would seem to be too many rotation players for a 10-man rotation, and no coach likes to go past 10, and certainly not Tom Thibodeau. Is there like something that you would expect to happen? Or are you just I'm in the dark, and you could tell me like one of 3 or 4 things could happen, and I don't feel great about predicting any of them. So I'll put it to you. Like, do you have any thoughts on that situation?
I have not. I'm not really in the mix in terms of what's being speculated around the building. I will say, and I think we all know this because Quentin's name was in some of the other deals this summer.
Yes.
Folks around the league like him.
Yeah.
And I think to get something, you got to give something. So I think that's kind of where it ends for me. And I'll otherwise be in the same boat as you in terms of watching and waiting. Okay. I wonder, was Jeff were we having this conversation with Jeff last night? One of our road trips, somebody brought up a more traditional big for this team.
Oh, that's interesting.
Who was I talking? Who was I talking to? And I had the same reaction. I was like, okay.
I mean,
but if you are if you're going to move one of those guys, I don't know. What you got?
I don't have any answers. I've been struggling with this. In terms of the more traditional big thing, I know there's a guy down I-95 whose team is currently 1-4. I don't think Philadelphia is looking to trade Joel Embiid anytime soon. But like that's for years been my long term. He's always been the guy I've had my eye on long term. Like
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I'm all in on. I think Joel Embiid one of these years. I don't know when it's going to be, and maybe it's just because of the Philly thing. I think he's going to pull a Moses in '83, and he's just going to put a team on his back, and he's like, you know what? Screw this. Get out of my way. I'm going to go win the championship now. And I think he has the talent to do it. And I worry about the health. But if that dude ever got antsy enough to like demand out, I would give up. I mean, take whatever you want because I like him. I've always liked Joel Embiid.
I had never considered that Philly would even let that happen. But they probably
won't. But
no, you never know. I will say that he was my MVP pick this year, and I'm not going to be too alarmed by their 1-4 start.
Certainly.
I just think it's time. I think it's time, and they're going to get together. God, if they don't figure it out, we're distracted from the team we're supposed to be talking about. But like, what the hell if they don't figure it out?
No, we can get distracted for half a second. Okay. Lakers, Nets, Sixers. Who are you most worried about, and who are you least worried about?
Lakers, Sixers least. The Nets are just going to be somewhere in the middle. Like, there's something to be said for having talent, right? But just as we just spent 10 minutes gushing over Jalen and comparing guys to him, there's also something to be said for camaraderie, the ease with which we play with one another, the ease in the locker room, the stress off a head coach. Like, nobody would question the talent of KD and Kyrie. It's everything else. And does their talent outweigh everything else? I don't know. We're going to find out.
There is a lot of the everything else going around.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a whole lot of everything else, bro.
Before we finish up, I want to ask you about RJ. We haven't brought up his name yet. He just got, as Mitch would call it, he just got a little bag. Maybe a little bit bigger than a little bag. He's a medium-sized bag. He's struggling this year with, you could say he's struggling with the shot at the rim. You could say he's struggling with making the right decisions with the shot from outside. To me, I look at a guy who may be struggling with his place on this team, potentially his place in this league. Like he was a number one. He was a 30 usage guy for whatever it was, 50 games last year. And now he's, Drew's clearly kind of picking up where he left off, and Jalen's here and Jalen's doing what Jalen's doing. Where is your worry scale at for RJ Barrett? And do you attribute it to the same thing that I attributed to, or are you somewhere else on him?
I got it pegged more as just we're 4 games in. 4 games in?
Nothing.
We're 4 games in. I'm not really worried about RJ. I think that likability, easy to work with, being a skill, like applies to RJ. I'm not worried. Okay. I think when we talk about those 3, if that's our big 3, Drew needed this start, Jalen needed this start, RJ's okay. Like, he can handle it in my mind, because Lord knows if Drew had gotten off to a terrible start, or like Jalen had. You know what I mean? Like, think about it.
And well, so I wouldn't have worried about Jalen. If Julius had gotten off to a terrible start, you
wouldn't have worried about Jalen because you're a smart basketball person. Everybody else would be like, we overpaid and blah, blah, blah. What are the Knicks doing? Like, just been awful, right?
That's true.
So I do think you're right in that he's going to have to learn his spots in this rotation. But as much as I love Drew, like, is this the version of him that's here to stay? Or like, is he going to help open the door for RJ to figure out where, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, we don't have to question whether or not RJ is going to be on the floor. I do think that he's going to have to stay in the gym. That 3-point percentage is, it kind of fluctuates. I think if he had more of that sniper ability that we could bank on, it would be coming a little bit easier. But he's going to finish at the rim. Like, he's going to get to the free throw line. Like, all of that is coming. And so I'm not overly alarmed. What I think would be interesting, and, he said this last year, he reiterated it again this year to me, is if he can hang his hat on the defensive end, And what does that create for him? That's far easier said than done in any sport, other than maybe football, because you don't have to play both sides of the ball. But I think he's smart enough basketball-wise, and just as a young man. I think RJ is great. He can figure it out. Like, I'm not worried about him.
Okay. Last thing, I'm going to let you go. You did an amazing job hosting. I was about to say Media Day. It's not Media Day. Content Day. There we go. It was fun watching you talk to everybody and kind of, getting the guys to open up a little bit. I really enjoyed that. Again, I know we talked about the vibe of this team right now, and it's early and everything's good right now. Do you think it's real? Do you think this team genuinely, because it felt like the team 2 years ago, there was something about them that they really just coalesced, and there was I don't know what you want to call it, but it was something real that we hadn't seen in this town in a long time. Do you think this team could have some of those same qualities? Is it different, but the results might be similar? What did you come away with thinking about where this team is at in that sense?
I think this team is just like us, Macri. Like, I don't know about you, but I've lately been in a bunch of conversations about what we learned in the pandemic. 2 years ago was like peak pandemic time. Like, I was great with my outdoor workouts with my cousins in the pandemic because that's all we could do, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I think there is an element of whether we like it or not, there were some positive byproducts for this team from that pandemic experience. Then last year, we was outside and it looked a little different. Between fans back in the building, life opening back up, like other teams being competitive, like it just looked a little different. So to me, I'll take this team over the team of 2 years ago because I think they've had to go through some things.
Okay.
There's this great note. Let me see if I can find it real quick before I let you go. But we were
Sure.
like looking at teams that returned the most from like last season.
Oh, return the most players? Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they were.
I've had, while you're looking, I've had this thought recently, but specifically in a Knicks context, because especially over the last 20 plus years, you look at the roster, like you go, like if you skip over a year and you like look at the roster every 2 years, oftentimes you'll see like a guy or two guys that are the same. And now you look at this team versus 2 years ago. I mean, it's a lot of continuity.
Yeah. Okay. So they're not as high up as I thought because Milwaukee returned 12 players. Then you got the Clippers, Toronto, Chicago, the Pelicans, Miami, and Charlotte that all returned 11. And then Miami returns 10. So I think the Knicks fall under that. But the point is there's a core here that experienced those 2 years together. Tibbs is still here. Like the biggest piece was the piece that you needed, and you got literally like the perfect guard in that spot in Jalen. Sure. So I'll take this team over the team of 2 years ago. I do think it's real, but like we said earlier in the conversation, growth and progress may not translate in the standings. And that is more of a commentary on how deep and how tough the East is, as opposed to what the Knicks did or didn't do to improve this season.
All right, I lied. Well, last one. Who's your pick to come out of the East?
The Bucks, all day. I got the Bucks over everybody.
See, Andrew, I told you I was smart.
Bro, like Giannis is just different. Like he's different, and it just flows down from like.
This is my MVP pick too.
So it's between him and Joel for me, and I went with Joel because I don't care what they say, Macri. Like that's a narrative award, and they're not gonna let that man be this close like 2 years in a row, and if he has a decent season, not pull it out. I don't care what nobody said.
I agree. It is a narrative-based award. My counter to that, very briefly, is that I think the narrative around Giannis has gotten to the point where it's like he won those back-to-back MVPs, and now since then, it's even solidified that much more that like, oh wait, this guy's the best player in the sport, and he is 100% the best player in the sport. Like when you talk two-way play, the whole thing. So I feel like there might be a narrative around rewarding his continued improvement since the two MVPs, and like, we put him in some exclusive company as well if he gets the third. But I hear what you're saying on Joel.
That's a good point. Because like even last night, and this is what I mean by him being different. I asked him because what are we doing this on a Thursday, the 27th? To date, he's had 2 40-10 games. Combined, the rest of the league has had 1. So, like, this dude is, like, head and shoulders above the competition. And I'm with you. It's important that we not become apathetic. I think Jordan got hit with some of that. LeBron has been hit with some of that because we just get accustomed to their greatness. So I hear you on that. But if you give me anything close, Joel and Giannis, I think the nod goes to Joel.
I agree. If it's close, I could see the man. Can you imagine if he finished second 3 years in a row? That would be
blow it all up. Come to New York. You need a bigger market, baby. You need a bigger market.
Get out of Philly. Cheesesteaks are overrated there. Monica McNutt, you're amazing. Could you just, before you go, let the folks at home, as if anybody didn't know, where they could find you, hear you, see you, read your tweets, whatever.
Social, McNutt, Monica. I'm obviously rolling with my Knicks squad. The schedule's a little funky this year. I think I'm back in November 9th. I'll be back in studio with those guys. Okay. And I'll be popping up around on ESPN until then.
I love it. Well, I'll be watching, listening, the whole thing. It was a pleasure as always. I love talking hoops to you. Seriously.
Thanks for having me. This was the best DM ever, Claudia. I was like, sure, I'll come to the pod.
Very welcome, Monica.
She's the best.
I call these mom-in-law episodes because, like, it's tough when we do what we do and it's like, I'm on YouTube, but there's a podcast, which is like the radio, but it's not. And then it's as simple as pointing to the TV. Oh, she was on the show. Like, it's that simple. When I like try to explain to my fiance's mom what I do for a living, it's like, oh,
well, tell mom-in-law I said hey.
Will do.
There you go. That'll make her day.
Say hi, Virginia. Hi, Virginia.
Hi, Virginia.
There you go.
Love it.